Hey worldwide photo walkers, my name is Terry White and I thought I'd give you some tips on using Lightroom to correct your landscape worldwide photo walk photos. So I've got a landscape here that I took in Iceland. This is pretty much out of the camera. I did make an HDR of this, but this is the HDR without any other edits to it. So let's go through some things that I would do to this photo to make it better. First and foremost, in Lightroom, one of the things I would do is I would head over to the editing, scroll down, and in the editing, you're going to find an area called optics. And the very first thing I like to do is correct for lens correction. Now, if you're shooting with one of the new mirrorless cameras, it's probably doing that in the camera and you don't need to do this. But if you shot this with a DSLR or a phone, then you would just simply enable the lens correction. It should figure out which camera and which lens you used and put those two together to correct. So this is before. It's kind of, you can see the bowing and bending in the image. And this is after, where it kind of straightens it out. The next thing that's a dead giveaway or dead, problem to have with the landscape is when the horizon is crooked. So we can see that this photo is kind of tilted going up, and we want to fix that. So to do that, we'll just go to the crop tool. And sometimes auto will do it, but you can also just simply drag the slider to correct, and you get a visible grid while you're dragging it to make sure that you're lining your photo up with the proper horizon line. All right, so now that we got that out of the way, let's head over to the rest of the edits to make this a better photo. So first and foremost, you can choose a profile. If you shot in RAW, you'll get some RAW profiles. You could also do some creative ones. I could use landscape, that brightens things up a bit, but I like to use vivid for my landscapes, believe it or not, especially if those landscapes have people in them. So now that I've done that, the next thing I would do is I could start going through all the different sliders to make adjustments, but I like to get a head start and let Lightroom do the adjustments for me with the auto tone. But one more thing before we do auto tone, and that is you might want to set your white balance. So there's some presets already here. If you don't want to do a manual adjustment, you could do daylight. You could try cloudy since you guys are going to be doing photo walks outside. You're probably going to pick between one of those two. So pick the one, this was kind of a hazy day. It wasn't necessarily cloudy, but I picked the one that gave the best looking color. And that in this case was cloudy. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and hit that auto tone button. And look at that, it started to bring back my sky, it started to bring back some of that detail to give me a better looking shot than what I started with the HDR. Now, again, these are starting points. You don't have to live with any of this. For example, contrast, they adjusted the algorithm. It used to make it lower. Now it's making it higher, but maybe I wanted to make it a little higher. Maybe I want to bring down the exposure just a tad bit more than what auto did. So auto is a starting point. It doesn't necessarily mean that's where you have to stop. If you want to bring your shadows up more, you could, or bring them down a little bit more to make it a little bit more, to make the shadows a little darker. And the last thing I'd like to do is I still like to bring out a little bit more detail in that sky. So I could either use an adjustment brush to paint the sky, or I could use a linear gradient to bring the sky out. So I'm just going to pull down a linear gradient. And depending on what that linear gradient was set to, you'll start to see it right away. I'm going to set the exposure down a bit more. I'm going to set the texture back to 0 because I don't want to adjust the texture at all. And last but not least, I'm going to go down and adjust the dehaze and just, again, try and bring out, ooh, that's a little too much. Don't overdo it. Just try and bring out a little bit more of that sky. So this was our before shot. That's our after shot. And look at the differences we made with just a few seconds in Lightroom, whether you're on your desktop or on your mobile devices. So you can make these adjustments on the go, or you can make them when you get back to your computer. So that's it. Hope you have a great shoot on your photo walk. And if you're taking landscapes, think about some of these tips to make your landscapes look better. Cheers, everybody. Have a good one. Thanks.